Hello, Council. My name is Jerry Wade. I had never been to Madison prior to 18 months ago. I'm now the proud owner of 301 West Street, 307 West Street, and now to this topic, we're on 603 East Street. So I have entered in the vicinity of the Victoria Inn. Before I talk about that, let's talk about tourism. Tourism. Rules are either rules or they're not. And if there are rules, they need to be enforced and fairly enforced. Now, we mentioned earlier that maybe, I think Camille came up and talked about guidelines. A guideline is different than a rule. And I'm not here, Joe can understand this better than me, but I want to talk about rules. In the past year, I bought two buildings. On one of my buildings, it triggered what was called a change of use. I've been subject to the approvals of the City Council, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Historic Board. I've had multiple inspections at my buildings by the local building inspector, Ken Cole from DHS, the Fire Marshal, and the Health Department. And I had to seek what was called a conditional use permit. Now, although there had been a change of use at my building with the prior owner's purchase, this was never discovered nor enforced. I most recently applied for a one-day variance fire wash last Saturday night. I think at least one of our council members was at an event at Mad Paddle last Saturday night. That allowed us to use our room for one day. I'm following the rules. I was able to use that room for one day. That cost us thousands of dollars in various payments to consultants and another $750 to an electrician to open that one day. So that brings me to the Victoria Inn. I was recently at a neighbor's house near the Victoria Inn within the last couple of weeks. While I was there for an hour, they invited me over for dinner. I observed two drug deals in broad daylight. Last year at Weinstein and Barrel, we had Mad Paddle beer on tap. And I met a couple from Indianapolis, Indiana. We've maintained a friendship. They've been following Mad Paddle that whole time. And they were excited to see us open, and they wanted to come back down to Madison. And lo and behold, there were a couple job openings at the school system. I said, you ought to apply for that. And so they actually applied for that, and they've made a decision to come to Madison. How'd that happen? There's all the tourism, right? Tourism brought them to Madison. They love Madison just like I do. But they were looking at a house. And they showed me the houses online that they were looking at. One of them was right across from the Victoria Inn. And they were thinking about making an offer. They didn't know what they didn't know, did they? They didn't. So I would ask all of you on the council right now, if you had a friend or relative coming from Indianapolis, Indiana, and they were looking at buying a house right across the street from the Victoria Inn, would you warn them? Would you tell them? Or would you just stay quiet? I think you all know what you do, and that's a responsibility we have here tonight. So I would, if others and I are to comply 100% with the Indiana Fire and Building Codes, why are others not held to the same standard, especially when the public safety is at risk? I would ask this council to request that the Victoria Inn's history in the areas of both change of use and conditional use be fully vetted. I would like to read that ordinance. This is the Indiana final rule. It does not say guideline. Section 675 IAC 12-411, occupancy of existing buildings. No change in the character of use in any building or structure shall be permitted that causes the building or structure to be classified with a different occupancy group or within a different division of the same occupancy group. Here's the key line. Unless the building or structure complies with or is made to comply with the current rules of the Commission for new construction for the proposed or revised use of that building. That's what I've had to do at Mad Paddle. It does not appear that Victoria Inn has had to do that. If it is concluded that there was either a change of use and laws were not enforced at the Victoria Inn, or if there was a conditional use permit was required and none exists, then the building should be closed until such time that it complies with the laws and the rules, just as other businesses are doing in Madison. I would have been shut down last Saturday if I didn't follow those rules. I'd be shut down this Saturday. I've had two groups call me this week. Hey, we want to rent that room at Mad Paddle. Guess what? You can't, because I've got to follow the rules. So fair needs to be fair. Rules are either rules or they're not. If they're rules, they need to be both enforced and enforced fairly. Thank you for listening.
To try to get what we can stopped. I know the police has been very active, and they're going to continue to be active, but we are trying.
Because there are people
this is an issue that obviously affects a lot of these folks, and there's nothing that anybody can say or it's going to make them feel any better. But I can tell you that I am, and we're in the process of trying to figure out every possible angle that we can look at to help these folks with their problems. Some of it is overarching criminal justice issues that it's going to take a heck of a lot more than just nuisance and some of those things. But if we can start there, and if we can do something about it, we are trying to figure out how to do that and how to do that as quickly as possible. So just so you guys know that, we are looking into every angle that we can in order to try and curb this activity and curb some of the stuff that's going on there, and to try to figure out from a long-term aspect of where this goes. There's a balance, and unfortunately, I don't know that we can ever look at what it is, but there's a balance in Indiana with regard to property rights and everything else. But we as a city, I think, and the administration is committed to try and figure out every angle that we can to look into this and try and get what we can stopped. I know the police has been very active, and they're going to continue to be active, but we are trying to figure this out. To try to get what we can stopped. I know the police has been very active, and they're going to continue to be active, but we are trying to figure this out. So.
We actually have more than one attorney looking
Yep.
into matching up all the codes and everything. So,
Sheriff's Department, we were dedicated, and we were coming into this community, and yes, we were going to live on Walnut Street, even though we had heard everything about Walnut Street. Now, I love Walnut Street. I love it. I am not going to lie to you, until about the last year, and I hate it. I hate it. We own our home outright. We don't owe a mortgage. We own it. But because of everything that we've been through on Walnut Street that seeps over from Victoria Inn, we are leaving. We are going to take a loss on our home because A, nobody's going to rent our home. B, nobody's going to buy our home because it sits on Walnut Street and nobody will help us. Now let me tell you what we've been through in the 8 years. Yes, we were going to live on Walnut Street, even though we had heard everything about Walnut Street. Now, I love Walnut Street. I love it. I am not going to lie to you, until about the last year, and I hate it. I hate it. We own our home outright. We don't owe a mortgage. We own it. But because of everything that we've been through on Walnut Street that seeps over from Victoria Inn, we are leaving. We are going to take a loss on our home because A, nobody's going to rent our home. B, nobody's going to buy our home because it sits on Walnut Street and nobody will help us. Now let me tell you what we've been through in the 8 years. We have a Mustang that my husband bought brand new in 1989. Nice Mustang. Sits in the back of our property. Got up one morning to go to work bright and early. Went into work early at the Salvation Army because I was the case manager at that time. It was in November. Got in, hit my head on the sun visor, and I thought, what's going on? That sun visor shouldn't be down. This is winter, because the top of the Mustang wouldn't have gone down. Yeah, our vehicle was broken into. We call law enforcement. Law enforcement comes. Law enforcement writes out a report. Mike says, got a perfect set of fingerprints on the back of that vehicle. On Facebook, when all he did was post a picture to ask who this person was. It exploded on Facebook so fast, and my husband was working out on the East Coast. I was home by myself. It blew up to the point where I was being physically threatened on Facebook, and they knew Mike was gone because they said she ought to be lucky we didn't kick the door in and shoot her. we ought to go back tonight and ratchet strap the door shut and burn the house down with her inside it. Again, I work for Indiana State Parole, and I should not be afraid. And that's what I've had to go through, and that is minor compared to what I have had to go through on that street and my husband. And unfortunately, we're going to take a loss on our home, and we're going to live in we have to choose to leave a community that we chose to live in when we first got down here. Because, see, this is what I used to call Madison. I used to call Madison my little Mayberry. This isn't Mayberry anymore. You got the Wild West here. And it's not in your backyards. You get to go home and you get to sleep. You can sit at your dinner tables and you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry stepping out your door to get in a vehicle. You don't have to worry about your state computer being stolen from you, which just happened. You don't have to worry about people breaking in and stealing your property so they can get drugs. You don't even have to worry about getting in your vehicle and worrying about needles being down there. You don't have to worry about any of that, but we do. That's our life. That's the reality of what we live in Madison, Indiana, a community that is supposed to be known for its tourism, its historical value, and its people. And your underbelly is killing your surface. That's all I got to say.
Jerry Wade again, 603 East Street. I would just like to, if Mr. Jenner can respond on this topic of change of use. So since properties like mine and other folks that come to Madison that buy a building, if there's a change of use, you're subject to all the fire codes and the rules. In me speaking with Mr. Ken Cole several weeks ago on this topic, he kind of indicated that if a change of use took place and it has kind of not made it onto the radar, seemed like that alone could be a reason that all the rules could be enforced, because rules are rules, fair is fair. I hear what you guys are saying, which is you're looking into it. I heard the police chief come up here and talk about he can only do so much, but if there is a state fire code that says there is a change of use and there was a change of use on that property, have we determined yet if something was missed?
We did it. There's been a thorough building inspection that covers a lot of these building inspection and other things. With regard to the fire, I don't know whether there's been a change of use or not.
Well, what we've heard is that it was once called a hotel, then it was called this, and it was called that. My understanding is that a change of use took place. So it would seem like if we determined that a change of use took place, and I'm subject to change of use rules, they all would be, then that alone is a reason for all the state fire codes. These are rules, not guidelines, would have to be enforced. Just because, so I would challenge you folks to look into, did a change of use take place? And if it did and it got missed, it would seem like you could enforce that right now.
Is it your thought that it changed from a apartment building to a hotel, or from a hotel to an apartment building?
I'm not sure. I've just been told that a change took place. So if a change indeed took place, the rules say, the law says that you've got to comply with the Indiana Fire Code as if it is a new building.
Yeah, I don't know. To my knowledge, it's been an apartment building for a long, long time. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't, I'm not down there, obviously, but I've known the previous owner. It's my understanding it's been an apartment building for a long time. The neighbors can correct me if I'm wrong, but.
It's listed in a lot of places as a hotel. Every place you Google is listed as a hotel.
Jefferson County property cards listed as a hotel.
Okay.
And Jefferson County sends sex offenders there, and they live in apartments.
Okay.
Not
Well,
just Jefferson County, a lot of counties. And that's why we originally went to the zoning board.
Okay. Well, that's certainly, that's another avenue, and I
That's part of
appreciate
the whole
that we
thing
can,
that we're
that we
looking
can
at, too.
pursue.
I would
that.
just ask the council to make sure that this is a topic area that is fully vetted, because if it is indeed a change of use took place and it was not enforced, you've got a good opportunity. Beyond that, there's the conditional use permit. So again, I'm not the lawyer on this, but I had to get a conditional use permit to operate my building differently than it was operating before. So even if the use didn't change, maybe the conditional use permit applies and you can deny that conditional use permit. Thank you.